Whose baby is that? The room fell into a stunned silence as I set the carrier down on the marble. I looked directly at the man who built $1 billion empire off secrets. Yours, Veilhart, he's yours. You brought her here. Veilhart's voice cut through the crowd. I didn't flinch, I didn't run, I just pulled back the blanket. I didn't come to ruin your night, I came to introduce you to your son. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't payback, a trap, or some Christmas Eve drama I'd been planning for months. It was simply the moment the truth refused to stay quiet. The moment a woman they all dismissed walked back into the room, holding the one thing money couldn't silence. Veilhart Marcus, Washington, D.C.'s youngest black billionaire and the man who once promised me forever, stood frozen under the soft white lights of his Georgetown estate. He hadn't aged a day, but me, I had changed, permanently. 7 months ago I gave birth alone, no press releases, no photo ops, no Morgan Air announcements. Just me, a baby bottle, and a birth certificate with no father's name. So when that gold-embossed envelope arrived last week, inviting me to Veilhart's luxury engagement party like I was some old college friend, I knew exactly what this was. He wanted to show off his upgrade. I wasn't supposed to show up at all. But I didn't just show up. I came with the truth wrapped in a red onesie from the Safeway on Georgia Avenue. Because when someone tries to erase you, sometimes the loudest response is to arrive carrying everything they tried to forget. And if you've ever walked into a room where they thought your silence meant surrender, you're not here by accident. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for helping this channel reach 400 subscribers. As we celebrate this season of love and reflection, I want to wish each of you a Merry Christmas in advance. Your presence here truly means a lot. Now, tonight's story takes place on Christmas Eve, in a room filled with luxury, champagne, and carefully hidden secrets. A billionaire CEO arrives with his new fiancée, confident that his past is far behind him. What he never expects is for the woman he once left behind to walk in, holding a baby that changes everything he thought he knew. This is a story about timing, truth, and the moment when the past refuses to stay silent. And before we begin, I want to ask something from you. Some people close to me, even my mom, believe this channel can't reach 1,000 subscribers. If these stories move you, please consider subscribing and sharing with someone who enjoys emotional, meaningful storytelling. Your support could help prove that belief wrong sooner than anyone expects. Now let's get into the story. The invitation had been sitting on my kitchen counter for 3 days, still unopened, still taunting. It arrived on a Tuesday, sealed, heavy, too luxurious for regular mail, the kind of thing that made you think it came with strings attached, and I already knew who it was from. Veilhart's taste was always deliberate, even his cruelty came wrapped in elegance. The thick cream envelope had gold embossing, my full name written in calligraphy, Hope A. Green, like I was still someone he spoke about with respect. I stared at it from across the kitchen, one hand cradling Isaiah while the other absent-mindedly wiped formula from my sleep shirt. I was too tired to be angry, too tired to cry, but not too tired to feel. Eventually, I peeled the seal back. Georgetown Estate, Christmas Eve Gala. You are cordially invited. Blah blah blah, champagne, string quartet, holiday joy. Hosted by Veilhart Marcus and Clara Thorne. And just like that, it felt like someone had slapped me without touching me. Clara, the woman from the online photos, flawless, blonde, a DC socialite with a last name that mattered and a PR team that worked overtime. I'd seen their engagement exclusive in * Washingtonian, an estate photoshoot with glowing write-ups about Washington's newest power couple. I remembered reading it while Isaiah napped on my chest, my heart aching in ways I didn't want to admit. Not because he moved on, but because he replaced me like I never even existed. I placed the invitation back on the counter, calmly, like it didn't feel like a trap dressed as a gift. But that night, after Isaiah finally drifted to sleep and the apartment sank into stillness, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and whispered the truth I hadn't let myself say. He doesn't know. Veilhart didn't know he had a son, because I never told him. It hadn't started like this. The last time we were together, really together, was the night his father died. We weren't even a couple then, just two ghosts haunting an old memory. He showed up at my door and I let him in, stupidly thinking maybe grief softened the steel in his voice. We talked, we fought, we fell asleep on the couch, and in the morning he was gone. 2 weeks later, I knew I was pregnant. 4 weeks later, he was spotted with Clara. 6 weeks later, he stopped replying to my texts. By then, I'd already decided. I wouldn't beg a billionaire for acknowledgement. I wouldn't give him the chance to see our child as a scandal to control. So I kept Isaiah to myself. I named him after the only person who ever made me feel safe growing up, my granddad. And Vale, that was an accident, a nod to strength. It wasn't until months later someone at the grocery store said, "That's Valehart's brother's name, right?" It haunted me, but I didn't change it. Because even when I hated Valehart Marcus, some part of me knew our son deserved a name that held weight. I didn't plan to go to the gala, not at first. I laughed when I saw the RSVP deadline, tossed the card in the trash, but it didn't stay there. That night I dug it back out, the corners slightly smudged with formula. And then the week passed. Isaiah's tiny face smiled at me through midnight feedings. The sound of Clara's laugh echoed from a podcast Valehart had been featured on. Everywhere I turned, the lie kept growing, a life that excluded the truth I carried in my arms. So I circled the date, December 24th. I wasn't going to crash his party. I was going to walk in like I belonged, because I did. My apartment wasn't fancy, but it was mine. 2 bedrooms in Southeast DC, 3rd floor walk-up, walls covered in peeling paint and pictures I framed myself. The stroller leaned against the entry wall, bottles sterilized and stacked next to the microwave. A handwritten list of bills and baby milestones stuck to the fridge with magnets from Target. I opened my closet the morning of the 24th and stared at the black dress still covered in dry cleaner plastic. It had been a gift, back when Valehart was still trying, still human, back when we talked about building an empire together. It still fit, barely. I paired it with boots from Payless, mascara I hadn't touched in months, and a quiet confidence I didn't recognize until I saw my own reflection. My neighbor Mrs. Janine helped me load Isaiah's diaper bag. She didn't ask questions, just kissed his forehead and told me to take my time. She knew enough. I clipped him into his car seat, wrapped him in the soft red onesie my cousin had mailed from Georgia, and whispered, "You ready to meet your father, baby?" He blinked up at me like he already knew. When you've raised a child in silence, in sacrifice, every choice starts to feel louder than it is. Every time I didn't reach out, every time I saw Valehart's face on a billboard or news site and said nothing, I thought I was protecting Isaiah. Maybe I was protecting myself too. But that night I realized something. There's a difference between peace and silence. Silence keeps the lie alive. Peace tells the truth and walks away. I didn't want anything from Valehart, not his money, not his name, just a moment where he had to look at the face he tried to erase and feel it, really feel it. And so I drove, through the cold, past the Capitol lit in white, to the gates of Georgetown's most guarded estate. The guard recognized me. He paused, said nothing, then waved me in. That was the moment I knew something had shifted, not in him, in me. She never asked for anything, not even his name, but if you've ever kept a secret just to protect peace, you understand why she stayed quiet. The headlights of my old Honda cut through the December fog as I pulled into the circular driveway of the Georgetown estate. The same driveway I used to walk barefoot down when I still believed I'd grow old behind these gates. Tonight it was lined with Teslas, Bentleys, a white Rolls with custom plates. Engines still warm, people still arriving. I parked in the farthest corner, like my car knew it didn't belong. The security guard stepped toward me before I even unbuckled my seatbelt. His flashlight beam paused on my windshield, then lowered. He looked at me, blinked. "Ms. Grain." His voice was neutral, but his eyes flickered. Recognition, shock, a little pity. I nodded, "I'm on the list." He didn't argue, just stepped aside and opened the gate. The Georgetown mansion stood glowing ahead, dressed in gold and white lights. It looked like a postcard from a life I used to almost have, the kind of perfection that hums with secrets. Inside, the party roared. A live jazz band played near the grand staircase. Crystal chandeliers danced above rows of servers holding trays of champagne. Laughter rose in bubbles. I stepped through the doors with Isaiah's carrier in one hand and silence in the other. Heads turned like I'd dropped a bomb. Eyes darted, names whispered, someone actually gasped. And there he was, Valehart Marcus, polished, poised, pretending, in a tailored tux, hand on Clara's waist. Her skin shimmered like glass, her smile rehearsed. Our eyes locked. His froze first. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just a party. It was a performance. And I'd just walked on stage, holding the truth he couldn't control. The music faded behind me as I moved across the marble floor, one slow, deliberate step at a time. Isaiah's carrier rocked gently at my side. The softest squeak of its handle echoed louder than the saxophone in the background. I didn't look at anyone else, not the senator's wife staring from behind her flute of champagne, not the tech mogul whispering something to his wife. My eyes were on Veilhart. He tilted his head slightly. Confusion furrowed his brow. He recognized me, but his mind couldn't catch up with the truth. Beside him, Clara turned toward me with a practiced, poised smile. That socialite charm women like her are trained in, but I saw it falter at the edges. That was the thing about masks, they crack before they fall. Veilhart stepped forward. Anna. I blinked once, it's Hope. His eyes dropped to the carrier, then back up. And who's that? My hands didn't tremble, my voice didn't shake. I knelt, set the carrier down gently on the floor, and peeled back the blanket. This is Isaiah Vale, I said, your son. The sound of a glass shattering on marble punched through the silence. Champagne splashed across someone's shoes. Clara's hand dropped from Veilhart's arm like her grip had vanished. A guest gasped, loudly, then covered their mouth. Veilhart didn't move, not a breath, not a word. Just his eyes fixed on Isaiah. Frozen. In that moment, I wasn't the ex-girlfriend. I wasn't the mistake. I wasn't the girl he forgot. I was the storm he never saw coming. Whispers don't echo in rooms like this. They ripple. From one sequined shoulder to another, from champagne flute to red lip, from manicured hand to pearl-draped ear. By the time I straightened back up, Isaiah still asleep in his carrier, the entire east wing of Georgetown's ballroom had shifted. A board member from Marcus and Slate stood frozen by the fireplace, half a canapé raised to his mouth. His wife nudged him, whispered something sharp. A senator's wife, I'd met her once, back when I was Veilhart's creative muse, turned on her heel and walked away, heels clacking like judgment. Clara's hand trembled as she clutched the stem of her glass. She didn't look at Isaiah, she didn't even look at me. Her eyes locked on Veilhart like he'd betrayed her in public, which technically he had. What is this? She demanded, voice cold but cracking. Is this some twisted stunt? A setup? You knew she was coming. Veilhart still hadn't spoken. His eyes were fixed on Isaiah like time had stopped, like he was waiting for the baby to disappear so the lie could stay intact. Veilhart, Clara pressed, louder now, say something. But he didn't, because he couldn't. So I did. I didn't come here to ruin your night, I said, calm but clear. I came because he deserves to know, and Isaiah deserves to be seen. Clara finally turned to me, fury and disbelief painted across her face. And you chose tonight for this. You show up with a child and expect what applause? I don't expect anything, I replied, but my son deserves a name, and a father who doesn't hide him behind party invitations and press tour. Then from behind the crowd, a warm, familiar voice cut through the tension. Well, would you look at that, said Walter Harrington, former CEO and Veilhart's mentor, stepping forward with a knowing smirk. Morgan cheekbones, can't fake that. Some people laughed nervously. Clara didn't. She stared at Walter like he'd betrayed her too, but he just walked over, peered into the carrier, and let out a soft, surprised chuckle. Reminds me of Veilhart at that age, he said, minus the attitude, for now. I picked up the carrier, ready to turn and leave. The message had landed. The truth was out. I'd done what I came to do. But as I turned toward the door, I heard him. Hope, Veilhart said, voice low, come with me now. I paused. Not because I was afraid, but because I was. I turned to face him. If this is about control, I'm not interested. It's not, he said, eyes still on Isaiah. It's about understanding. I gave him a long look. And then I followed him into the one room he never let anyone see. She didn't come to break him. She came because her son deserved a name. If you've ever chosen truth over comfort, you're already part of this story. The heavy oak door shut behind us with a thud. Silence swallowed the noise of the party. His private study looked exactly like I remembered, deep mahogany walls, shelves lined with first editions no one ever read, and two leather chairs arranged in front of the fireplace like a negotiation was always about to happen. The whiskey decanter sat untouched on the tray. Not even dust dared settle here. Veilheart stood by the window, arms crossed, back stiff. I set Isaiah's carrier gently on the floor between us. He didn't look at me, he looked at his son, like he was staring at something both fragile and foreign. Then finally he spoke, quiet, accusing. "You kept him from me." I laughed once, sharp. "You kept me out of everything." His eyes snapped to mine. "That's not the same." "No," I said, "it's worse." He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him interrupt. "You ghosted me. You climbed into bed the night your father died, and by morning you were gone. Then 2 weeks later you were posing for engagement photos. You built a world without me. I just stopped pretending I belonged in it." He sat down slowly, like his knees had forgotten how to hold the weight of this moment. 7 months, I said, softer now. "He's 7 months old." Veilheart blinked, his name, Isaiah Vale. I hesitated. "It wasn't about you. I didn't know your brother's name until someone mentioned it at the grocery store." He looked down at Isaiah, sleeping peacefully. His face changed, just a little. The CEO mask cracked, and for the first time all night I saw it. Not power. Not shame. Just grief and something dangerously close to regret asterisk. Isaiah stirred in his carrier, lips twitching in a silent cry before the sound caught up. I reached into the diaper bag and pulled out a bottle, twisting the cap with practiced ease. The room was still, even the fire crackled quieter, like it knew something sacred was unfolding. I glanced at Veilheart. He was staring, not at me, not anymore, but at Isaiah, like he was trying to memorize every line of his face in real time, like maybe this moment could undo the months he'd missed. I held out the bottle. "Do you want to feed him?" His head snapped toward me. Something flickered across his face, panic maybe, or shame. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he nodded. I knelt beside the carrier, lifted Isaiah with one arm, and handed him over gently. "Support his head, like this," I said softly, guiding Veilheart's arms. "Tilt the bottle just enough, not too much." He followed my lead, awkward at first. His hands, the same ones that signed billion-dollar deals, that built empires, trembled. But Isaiah didn't care. He latched onto the bottle like he'd been waiting for this moment, like he recognized something in the rhythm of his father's heartbeat. Silence wrapped around us like a weighted blanket, not heavy, just real. Veilheart stared down at him, completely still. Then he whispered, barely audible. "He has my brother's eyes." I didn't say anything. Because in that moment, Veilheart Marcus, ruthless, polished, untouchable, wasn't a CEO or a name on a skyline. He was just a man. A father. Holding the one thing he couldn't negotiate his way out of. The door opened without a knock. Clara stepped into the study, heels clicking against the hardwood like punctuation marks in an argument she hadn't started, but was already losing. She froze mid-step. Her gaze dropped to Veilheart, still cradling Isaiah in his arms, the bottle half empty, the baby content, the silence speaking louder than any PR team ever could. Her voice trembled, clipped and tight. "What is going on in here?" Veilheart looked up, startled, like he'd forgotten there was a world beyond the boy in his arms. Slowly, he set the bottle on the table beside him, careful not to jostle Isaiah. I stood calm, unapologetic. "We have a child together." I let the truth land, soft but undeniable. "You wanted me here tonight, Clara, maybe not for this, but here I am." She blinked and I watched it happen, the internal unraveling. The disbelief. The humiliation. The understanding. Her mouth opened like she wanted to scream, but no sound came, just a breath, shaky, and then the sharp turn of her body as she stormed out, heels echoing all the way down the hall. Veilheart didn't move, didn't chase her. He just adjusted Isaiah in his arms, a little clumsy, a little gentler. And stayed. That was the moment I knew, not everything had changed. But something had. For once, Veilheart didn't run toward damage control, or away from discomfort. He stayed. Right there. Holding the consequence. Holding the proof. Holding his son. A soft knock broke the stillness. Then Walter's voice, muffled but warm. "Veilheart, guests are wondering where their host disappeared to. and the roast is getting cold." Veilheart didn't answer, just nodded once, his chin dipped toward Isaiah, who had fallen back asleep, milk-drunk and peaceful. Outside that study, the party buzzed louder now, not with jazz or laughter, but the unmistakable hum of gossip. Georgetown's golden halls echoed with quiet scandal, whispers of illegitimate child, old flame, PR nightmare. But in this room, none of it mattered. I stepped forward, collecting Isaiah's blanket and bottle, then leaned down to ease him gently from Veilheart's arms. He held on for a second too long. "You leaving?" he asked quietly. "I came to tell the truth," I replied, adjusting the blanket around Isaiah's legs. "That part's done." Veilheart stood, slower this time, like his whole world felt different beneath his feet. He looked at me, not defensive, not polished, just uncertain, vulnerable in a way I didn't think he could be. "Do I get to see him again?" The question hit harder than I expected. Not because of the words, but because of the way he said them, like he knew the answer wasn't his to demand anymore. I met his eyes. "That depends on you," I said. "Don't show up with money, don't send a lawyer, don't offer a trust fund or a press release." I reached into the diaper bag and pulled out a small envelope. Inside, a photo I'd taken last week, Isaiah in his red Safeway onesie, grinning, cheeks round and eyes wide like he knew he was magic. I handed it to Veilheart. "Start with this." He looked at the photo like it burned and healed at the same time. No signature, no phone number, just that image. A piece of the truth he could never untangle from spreadsheets or headlines. I turned toward the door. Isaiah nestled against my shoulder. Veilheart didn't stop me. Didn't beg. Didn't try to fix it with promises. He just stood there, still holding the weight of what he'd been handed, and for once, not trying to spin it into something else. And as I stepped back into the marble hallway, past the whispers and stares and broken champagne, I held my head high. Because he had tried to erase me. Erase us. But I came back with the one thing he could never rewrite. The truth that calls him Dad. That moment when he took the bottle, it wasn't just about feeding a child. It was about finally holding the weight of his choices. If you've ever waited for someone to finally see you, you're not alone in this story. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out, and do well to click on the subscribe button and turn on notifications for the next story.